MKE Conversations on Race is brought to you by U.S. Bank, the Greater Milwaukee Urban League, and the Milwaukee Fire and Police Commission. Welcome to Connect MKE Conversations on Race. Our ongoing series explores Milwaukee community issues and introduces us to the people working for diversity, inclusion, greater awareness, and how to make our community better. I'm your host, Denise Calloway. In this episode, we cover a variety of topics with the common threads of inclusion, including how a century-old organization is connecting people with manufacturing jobs and skills training, how awareness and understanding are key to overcoming our mental health crisis, and how a Milwaukee Community Center is commemorating 25 years of celebrating and empowering Milwaukee's LGBTQ community. But first, we visit with U.S. Bank to learn more about how homeownership is an essential piece of the puzzle and the effort to close the racial wealth gap. Stay with us. The greatest investment for most families is their home. It is the cornerstone of building generational wealth. Black families, however, lag behind every other racial and ethnic minority in home ownership. Nationwide, 3 out of every 4 white families own their homes, compared to just under half of all Black families. U.S. Bank is changing that statistic with its National Access Home Program, which helps close the home ownership gap, and Milwaukee is one of the first cities to take part in the program. U.S. Bank Access Home leaders joined us recently to tell us how the program got started and the impact they hope it will have in Milwaukee and across the country. Thank you both so much for being with us today. Lenny, why is home ownership so important to building wealth?
Well, I think it just begins with a couple of things. First and foremost, it's sort of a motivator of a mindset. It becomes something that you dream about, you aspire about, when you think about the concept of family and what family means to most individuals. It's one of those things that creates a high level of excitement. The sad part about it is that, especially in communities of color, when you think about those opportunities, many did not get those types of opportunities because, and quite frankly, and many of the households of color, the idea of home ownership wasn't really discussed. But it's definitely one of those things where it is certainly something to aspire for, to work towards, and more than anything else, it just gives you a very positive message that says, you can attain it, it's possible, and if so, you can use that home to kind of jumpstart the next steps. And in many cases, for a lot of people, that's the development, the creation of personal wealth.
Tell us a little bit more about the racial home ownership gap that exists. How did it exist and how significant is it?
Well, I wish I could give you better news there, but that gap has been around for a very, very long time. And I'm of the mindset and the belief that gap was something that could not be avoided. And the reason I say that is because for many, many years, especially in the Black community, for example, there were significant obstacles from day one that had to be overcome. Quite frankly, just lack of information, lack of knowledge, lack of experience when it comes to home ownership or ownership in general, dating all the way back to Jim Crow and slavery and that type of thing. So the obstacles have always been there, and the gap just continues to grow and grow. And then, of course, just laws and regulations. You have to remember, for a very long time, it was legal to discriminate in the home ownership space. So when you think about, wow, it's legal to discriminate, again, you're adding to that gap, that disparity. And it's unfortunate that it exists, and it gives us an opportunity, and of course many others, an opportunity to do what they can to close that gap.
What are some of the obstacles that still exist that U.S. Bank is really trying to remove with the Access Home program?
Well, I think the biggest one is just knowledge in general. One thing that I've learned in my 40 years in the industry is that knowledge is power. It's amazing what an individual is capable of doing when they are knowledgeable. And the Black community is no exception to that. I mean, if you think about anything that has faced the Black community, when we know better, we do better. And that's something that you can never take away. So from our point of view, just being in a position where we can provide knowledge, we can provide information through education, partnering with nonprofits, financial education, financial literacy, making sure that our folks are in the know. When you look at all of the catastrophes that took place in 2007, 2008, a lot of people try to blame that on a particular program or product. And yes, those things did contribute, but the greatest contributor to that was us not being in a position where we had the knowledge, the know-how, the experience, because there were a lot of bad people communicating a lot of bad things during that time. Imagine, if you will, if we were armed with that information and that know-how and that knowledge to be able to look those individuals in the eye and say, thank you, but no thank you. That doesn't work for me. That's not good for my family. That's not good for my perception of what wealth development should be. And just no, let's move on. Imagine if, as a community, we were armed with that information.
Do people understand what the impact is on the community and our society as a whole when people are left out of this important part of wealth building in our country?
Being left out of anything is never a good feeling. I mean, let's be honest. We think and talk about the use of the word inclusion. To be part of something means being part of the solution and part of the change. So I think one of the things that Access Home does is it gives us an opportunity to make sure that we connect all parties. Those in the real estate industry, those in the nonprofit space, those in the wealth development space. We get to kind of become a conduit, if you will, where we can connect all of that. And the other thing that it certainly does is it creates a level of personal growth and personal self-esteem. I mean, when you know that you are capable, you can hold your head higher.
Well, one of the cities that's beginning to take part in this project, the initial launch of it, is Milwaukee. Nina, how was Milwaukee selected as one of the first places for Access Home to launch?
Well, it all has to do with what Lenny just described, which is the internal leadership determining that the efforts really matter as it pertains to our national landscape. I would have to say Lenny had a lot to do with how Wisconsin was chosen, and I'm so thankful for the partnership that he is continuing to exhibit right here in the Milwaukee footprint. When we launched Access, this was one of the first key for the kickoff of Access. So just to hear that it's come full circle, and now what we call the MLO, or Mortgage Loan Officer Program, and the trainees are right here in Milwaukee, is something that will be on the history books for years to come. The other part of what he just described as it pertains to really investing in our community from a talent perspective, but then also supportive of our communities, is also appraisals. When we think about or want to purchase a home, the appraisal is a key component of that process. And just like we're doing with the MLO program and training individuals to make sure that we have a diverse population to support our community, specifically in Milwaukee, where in many cases it does have opportunity to majority minority MSA. In those situations, we are also looking at appraisers so that we can say, okay, this appraiser looks like the community that they serve. So there's benefit to understanding the neighborhood, either nation located right here in Milwaukee. So just knowing that those two initiatives are up and running and we are ready to just start to offer different products and solutions to those individuals who are in Black and Brown communities right here in our state is something to be proud of in our 160 year of existence in Wisconsin, by the way. So excited about that as well.
One of the things that's so important is not only having the infrastructure, the people in place to make this happen, is also having local partners who help you with the outreach. Nina, who are some of the local partners and what kind of success are you beginning to see?
It's so good to bring this topic up because we could not have accomplished any of this without our faith-based partners as well as those in the housing industry. So when we think about faith-based communities, we have some very nice organizations that are located right here in Milwaukee, some very prominent leaders in the faith-based community, one of which is Evolve Church right on Mill Road in 76. We also have a World Outreach Bible Training Center, 2 campuses on Silver Spring as well as in the southern part of our city. You know, those 2 churches specifically have done some great things, and I know other churches like Christian Faith Fellowship, they work with financial institutions to make sure that their congregants needed to be successful with their home ownership needs as well as other aspects of wealth building.
Again, home ownership is a big part of that, and it's a big focus of Access Home. Given the work that you've been doing here in Milwaukee, how quickly can we expect to see people find themselves in a position where they have that knowledge and now they're going to be able to move into the ranks of home ownership?
So I will tell you right away, you may as well start spreading the good news. I mean, Nina mentioned Evolve Church. First of all, if anybody doesn't believe that God works in, wonderful ways, they need to get a history lesson. But the way that we ended up connecting with the church was absolutely amazing. We're talking about 2,800 in their congregation. One of the things that we talked about was the development of this creation of a cohort of individuals who have desired and really wanted to be homeowners, but didn't necessarily know how to go about that. So we wanted to create this educational cohort, and we are pleased and privileged today to mention that we have, 500 members of that cohort already, all eager to be educated, to be credit prepared, and to obviously move to that next step of home ownership.
We are so excited to hear that information, and we look forward to having you both back where we can maybe have some of the homeowners with us and hear more about this great program and the great things it's doing in Milwaukee. Lenny and Nina, thank you both so much for being with us. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Access Home is just part of U.S. Bank's Access Commitment. You can find out more information at your local U.S. Bank or usbank.com. When we return, we'll address the fact that while awareness of our mental health is at an all-time high, we still have a lot of work to do to address the collective mental health crisis that is at the root of so many ills that plague our community. Stay with us. "2023 is the year of mental health awareness in Wisconsin. This designation comes at a time when there was growing concern about our collective mental wellness. Even before the COVID-19 pandemic, studies found that our mental health was getting worse. 1 in 5 adults and 1 in 6 kids experience mental illness or a mental disorder every year.
Dr. Miles, thank you so much for being with us today. What changes have you noticed in your practice? Is our collective mental health worse, or are we just paying more attention to it?
A good question and hard to answer honestly, because we don't know what it was like before because people weren't talking about it and they weren't coming out and asking for help. And so, yes, I think there are some new and unique challenges that are happening nowadays that weren't there before, but that was true in the past too. I think one of the biggest changes I'm seeing, and it's for a positive, is awareness and is a willingness to destigmatize mental health needs. I think that pop culture has played a role in that too. We're seeing more and more individuals who are in the spotlight coming out and saying, hey, I struggle with this and I got help. And if you get help, you can feel better too. And every day isn't perfect, but we are going to work on that and work on having a better day each day rather than having to suffer alone constantly with that. I really think that the decrease in stigma, we're not there, we're not 100% gone yet, but the decrease in stigma is really helping improve the access and the general awareness of the mental health needs of every single person.
When you take a look at someone who's coming in and seeking help, or if someone is watching this and they say to themselves, how do I know that either I'm struggling or someone I know is struggling to the point where it's really important for them to seek support and care?
That's an important question. So for ourselves, that really is an individual answer, but there are some overarching things we can look at. And so probably the biggest one is going to be a change in your general behavior. So if someone who is normally very outgoing and involved, and all of a sudden you notice they're pulling back from things, they're not engaging, they're not talking to people as much, that would be a clue that something is going on. Avoidance for ourselves, avoidance of the things that we normally would like to do or enjoy doing is another big clue. A lot of people will experience when they're starting to really struggle a significant decrease in energy. And so the effort to do anything is really challenging, even to the level of like enjoyment just goes away. That song you enjoyed on the radio comes on and you don't feel it anymore. That's a big clue. And then another area to consider or to think about is, what are other people saying to you? Are they giving you feedback that you didn't necessarily expect of like, you look really tired lately, or something seems off? That might be a clue for yourself that something isn't right and you might need to want to look at that a little closer and get some extra help. One other thing that we share with patients that I think is particularly helpful in that respect is to do some reflection on that. What does it look like when I'm struggling? What do I feel, but what are other people likely to notice about me? And what can they do to help me? And giving that to your closest support people to let them know, if I'm struggling, these are the things that would be really helpful, but also these are the things that are not helpful, because we certainly have those things people might say or do that might upset us actually more.
Those are really important tips. It's important information for folks to have. But is there still enough of a stigma around seeking mental health that it can be difficult for individuals to approach someone they love or to be reflective, on their own behavior, to move forward with getting the support that's needed?
Absolutely. So stigma's still out there. It really is. There's always been this belief that having any mental health struggles is a weakness. And if you have a weakness, I can't rely on you. I can't expect you to do certain things. You can't live up to certain expectations. And none of that's really true, because we all are going to struggle from time to time. And if we don't talk about it, then we're going to put ourselves in these like suffering by ourselves situations, which is just unnecessary. But it absolutely is still out there and still a problem that we are facing day to day, which is why I encourage people to talk to each other. One of the most powerful things I've seen and felt happen is when someone kind of speaks to you about the things they think you might be experiencing and they hit it on the head. Like,
it would be really hard to have to deal with that right now. And someone gets very surprised that you can even acknowledge that. One of my favorite sayings for some people, people who are struggling in the moment, is that it's okay to not be okay. And that gives them that permission to talk about it and to reach out and get the help that they want or that they need, really. Similarly, it's hard to reach out when you're struggling. So reaching out to another person who is struggling may really be their lifeline, because they may not have the energy or even the belief that they deserve that help if they're in that situation.
We obviously are hearing a lot in the news and in the community about mental health and some of the things that happen when people are in a mental health crisis. How do we begin to help people make that connection, to understand that having good mental health is just as important as having good physical health?
When I do that, I try to make those connections using similarities. And so oftentimes I use diabetes, because most people know what diabetes is, generally speaking, and that there is medication you must take. Otherwise, you are going to have severe physical results that are not good. And so I often will make connections to that of like, you wouldn't let that go without being treated. And you also wouldn't judge someone for that. And so we want to do the same thing with our mental health, both from a medication and a therapeutic standpoint. Allowing someone that openness and safe space to be able to talk about it and to acknowledge it, and just continuing that conversation to normalize mental health in the same realm as physical health. Because you're right, those two are, physical health is often accepted more than mental health. And we want those two to go hand in hand, because they really do go hand in hand.
When we take a look at this crisis that we really are in when it comes to our collective mental health in America, young people are being hit especially hard. Staggering numbers, particularly of young girls who talk about feeling depressed and unhappy. How do we begin to approach caring for our children so they can understand that when they're having these struggles, they can come forward?
I think it starts with us as the adults. We need to really model for our kids asking and receiving help. I think there is this unspoken belief, or sometimes spoken belief, that as a young person, you need to hold a particular standard. You need to look and sound a certain way and live up to the best grades and be on the best teams and achieve the most success without any failings or problems. And that's unrealistic. And if we as the adults talk to each other about the challenges we've had or the things that we struggle with, we can start modeling that. And then again, going back to some of the things we were already talking about, allowing ourselves to get help and normalize getting that help. We also just should ask them how they're doing and what they need, listen to them. And when asking them about what they need, being open to the idea that they might just need a space to like bounce ideas off or vent or just share their experience. And they might not need you to solve their problem or tell them what they did wrong or how to do it better, because that might just perpetuate the belief that they're not good enough or they had to do better. And in other situations, they might need some of that problem solving, and they might need help reaching out to talk to someone because they don't know where to start from a more therapy perspective.
Finally, when we take a look at where we are when it comes to mental health, what can we do to create better mental health spaces for ourselves and also within the communities where we live?
So for ourselves, I think making sure that you do some of your own awareness around what your needs might be. So setting your life up, your schedule up so that you have time set aside to kind of refill your own cup. Do the things that are enjoyable to you and that provide you some relaxation. We talk a lot about self-care, but we're very bad at doing it generally. And we need to put a lot of intention into that and understand that it's not selfish. It's more selfish not to do it because you're going to drain yourself completely of all of your resources, and then you can't help anybody else. Within our community, I'd love to see more, again, normalizing of what mental health is, checking in on each other, accepting the fact that not every day is going to be the best day, having more resources that are widely known and available for people of all kinds and of all socioeconomic statuses, because that can sometimes be a barrier for people, as well as building in some time, again, even within the community, for taking care of ourselves. We get really caught up, understandably, in all of life's necessities. We need to go to work. We need to take care of our families. Our to-do lists are very long. And if we don't slow down and allow for some space within that to do things that fill ourselves up, we are going to continue to struggle, and it's only going to get worse.
Dr. Miles, thank you so much for really talking to us about this very important issue and giving us some tips and advice so we can improve our collective mental health as well as the mental health of those that we care about. Thank you.
Thank you.
If you or someone you know needs help right now or is in immediate danger to themselves or others, please call 911. You can also call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 988 for less extreme or immediate needs. You can also get treatment information about Rogers Behavioral Health at rogersbh.org.
When we return, we'll learn how the Greater Milwaukee Urban League is connecting individuals with job training and manufacturing industry jobs. Stay with us. Welcome back. According to a recent study, the manufacturing skills gap in the U.S. could result in 2.1 million unfilled jobs by 2030. The cost of those missing jobs could potentially total $1 trillion in 2030 alone. On the third Wednesday of each month, Greater Milwaukee Urban League is hosting Working Wednesday, a job fair that offers opportunities for individuals to learn more about current openings in manufacturing and other areas and to get the information they need on job training.
Today we have our Working Wednesdays with the focus on manufacturing. So you can see all of our great employers. We have Generac, we have Snap-on, we have Joban. You know, they're here today to actually offer individuals jobs. Like we have on-the-spot interviewing and hiring. So this is a great opportunity for the community to come in and find out exactly, you know what, if you don't know what your career is, you can learn today what one can be, right? In manufacturing. Great paying jobs, turning a job into a career is what they're here today doing.
I'm trying to get some viable employment. You know, like I've been dealing with the Urban League for quite some time, and the ladies down here are actually, they're super. They'll help you with your resume, and there are other resources too that you can come and scope out and can help you with too. When they're right here too, and you know, you can explain if you have a certain situation, it's pretty decent, it's real great. I got 4 bites already, so I know I'll be employed real soon.
I think these are wonderful opportunities. I was at the one that they had last month, and there were some people that I spoke with today that went there, contacted somebody, and got a job right from that job fair. So they do make a difference.
See, I have my welding, so you know, it's been a couple of them in there that actually deal with welding. So they asked me for my resume, and they told me as soon as they get a chance to, they'll be calling me back. They have forklifting too, and manufacturing. So those are the fields that I love to be in, and they got all of them. So that was good for me.
Well, I'm with Gilbane Building Company, not too far away, actually just down the street, and we're recruiting. We're recruiting for our projects. We have a project going on in Milwaukee now at the Wisconsin Center, and a few other big projects coming down the pike in Milwaukee County. And it's important for us to make sure that we bolster our workforce in construction trades. You know, we have so many individuals close to retirement that pipeline needs to get filled, and what better way than to be right in the community recruiting.
I think for the Urban League and where we sit, bringing those pieces together and bringing those individuals together, that's what we want. We want that explosion. We want that explosion of people having good paying, sustainable weighing jobs that they're able to take care of their families. And I know that the employers here offer that.
Oh, well, I like working with my hands, anything that's like, physical. I'm mechanically inclined. I could never sit behind the desk, and then I'm kind of particular about the hours. So third shift would serve me and the client real good, They've been responsible for giving me employment before, so that's why I came back. I know where to come, yep.
One of the things about what we do with the training is that, you've got the person that gets into the training program, you've got to do your due diligence once you're in there. You've got to show up, you've got to perform, you've got to give us certifications so that we can get it reported to the proper people too. So it's kind of a good resource in that regard, and learning even the fact that if the class starts at 8 in the morning, then you're expected to be there at 8 in the morning. So it's kind of that learning experience that can be really, really interesting. But yeah, there's a lot of employers looking for good qualified people, and we want to help them get those people.
I think this is an awesome program. I love that the Milwaukee Urban League is working with those that have just kind of got back into the general population, because I think it's great for our community, and I think it gives an opportunity for, if you work with a firm like us, these are family sustaining jobs. These are things that can help you support anything you want to do.
I think it's like a one-stop shop, right? I can pick and choose what I want. I can get more information about what I need or what I'm looking for. I think this is, what do you call, your one-stop resource hub for employment, right? We have great employers here, literally, to help you determine or figure out, or you say, hey, I really talked to, was it Henson? I talked to them, I really like what they offer, but I'm more excited about what Snap-on offers. But I think it opens that mindset. Thinking about what I'm doing, I'm gonna love what I do because I'm giving myself an opportunity to have a chance at it.
When we return, we'll visit with the executive director of Milwaukee's LGBT Community Center and learn how it's effectively fighting for inclusion, protection, and awareness through much-needed programming that improves the quality of life for the entire community. June is Pride Month. It's a time of celebration for LGBTQ+ communities, but it also commemorates the beginning of efforts to fight for recognition and justice, efforts that continue today. While progress is being made, there are concerns. New legislation and practices, which some see as discriminatory, heightened rhetoric about the gay community, and instances of violence are all causing concern. Kevin, thanks so much for being with us today. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Of course, of course. 25 years ago, what did it mean to Milwaukee's LGBTQ+ community when the community center opened its doors?
So 25 years ago, it meant to have a place where people can come together to further develop our community here in the Greater Milwaukee. It also meant having educational, health programming, and resources that were available for our community that just wouldn't be available in other areas. And it also brought us into a place where we can come to one place and really work on social issues, things that were happening during that time back in the 90s, where we're becoming just known as the LGBT community.
And what does it mean today for the center to be there and to be available to people? In the 90s, there were a lot of different issues that were being addressed at that point in time, including HIV/AIDS.
Yeah, yes, it's a good point. So it still means it's still relevant, as we know that we are still having issues happening with our community. Some rights are being rolled back in certain states around the country. It's been very troubling to know that some of our transgender community have been even murdered in my own hometown. But we are still moving forward with the charge, and our goal is to continue to bring the quality of life to our people. And we will continue to stand with our transgender sisters and brothers and throughout the community.
One of the most visible examples of the change that's taken place in the LGBT plus community may be you. You were the first Afro-Latino male to lead the Milwaukee LGBT Community Center. What does that say or signal about the inclusiveness of the community here in Milwaukee?
I think the one thing that it says is how we've progressed as a community, and how we are constantly evolving and trying to find new avenues and new ways that we can really shine our community. Milwaukee being throughout the history known to being a very segregated city, I think this sits very well on our city, where it shows that a lot of our African American and Latino population are rising up in our city and taking on very important tasks and roles in the city to really put Milwaukee on the map, I believe, in a lot of ways. And on a national level, I'm actually one of few actually that are Black as an executive director for a major Milwaukee LGBT community center. So Milwaukee always has been in the forefront with some of these movements, but sometimes we get shined over by a Chicago, or we get shined over by a New York, but really Milwaukee's a very progressive city. I love my hometown very much, and to sit in this role, I take it with a lot of honor, and I know that there's a lot of work that needs to be done, which is why I chose to step into this role as an executive director.
Does it also remind people who are not in Milwaukee's LGBTQ plus community that it is a very diverse community?
Yeah, it is. We have people from all walks of life. I often echo to a lot of folks that don't really understand about the LGBT community center. Well, we actually service everybody. We are the largest LGBT community center in Southeast Wisconsin. But again, we don't turn anyone away. Even when it comes to our allies, we are here to support them as well. But yeah, every walk of life you can think of comes through our door on a day-to-day basis.
And how does that inclusiveness really impact the work that you do, the services and programs that you offer?
Yeah, well, I think in the sense of knowing that they have a place that is a safe place, a place that when you go past those doors, there's no judgment, a place where you have resources and services that can combat and meet the needs of our community that are hurting when it comes to therapy, conversion therapy, our transgender who really can't find employment. We hire them, we bring them into our center. You become a part of our staff, a part of our team, because we don't care what you look like. We just know that you have the qualifications and you're able to do this job. The LGBTQIA plus community has been here. We've always been here. We work in your office buildings. We work as teachers or doctors or lawyers. It's so unfortunate still we haven't gotten to the place where we as a community still have the full rights like everyone else does in the workforce. And again, talking a lot with our transgender community.
How do you begin to share information with the community so people are aware of the fact that when it comes to employment and in other areas, there are rights that exist for people in the LGBTQ plus community that need to be followed? How do you guide people through that process?
Well, there's a number of things that that do happen and take place. We do trainings. We're actually, to think of a couple of different school institutions, Milwaukee Public Schools for one example. We do training with their teachers, their staff. We work with some schools, actually, believe it or not, out in Waukesha that have been accepting. We've actually worked with affirming churches around the area that have opened up their doors to say, hey, we want to learn more about you. We need to understand the rights of the LGBT community so we can support you. And again, our community is in the churches, our community is in the Milwaukee Public Schools, our community is all around Milwaukee. And I'm very proud to say that my staff and my team that are here all have those resources and can teach and educate. I want to think of another great partner of ours, the Milwaukee Bucks. They've come and done a tour of the center, and one of the themes that constantly is being asked is like, how can we be trained and learn more and become a better partner with the Milwaukee LGBT Community Center? So that really puts me in a place to say that, oh, we got more work to do, because there's still a lot of people who are still asking. There's still a lot of people who just don't know. But that's, again, the start is just asking a question, and we give you the training. We'll tell you, we'll show you that this is who we are, and these are our rights. Just like you have rights, we do have rights as well.
You mentioned just briefly, just a moment or two ago, about the fact that some rights are being rolled back, and we're seeing that happen in different states around the country, even some efforts on the national level. How do you begin to address those issues here locally? Because even if we're not seeing that level of effort to roll back rights in Wisconsin, we certainly are seeing it nationally, and it impacts people here.
So one of the things I think it's really important is just educating, right? Educating people, letting them understand that we're not here to pollute anybody with anything. We're here to just tell you who our rights are. But as you said, there's about 120 anti-LGBTQIA plus bills on a national level being pushed. Here in Wisconsin alone, there's 6 in recent months that have been from the state assembly that they're trying to push. A lot of them very much geared towards the transgender communities. There's a tremendous attack on my brothers and sisters in the trans community that I haven't seen in my lifetime. Like being a gay male cis, it's really heartening for me to see this, and so I'm hoping that we can get to a space in a place where our state assembly can really understand, maybe just come into some training, or let us offer training to some of our elected officials, so you really understand that we're really no different than you. We're voters, we're taxpayers, we own our homes, we're renters, we buy food, we drive cars just like you drive cars. Some of our people in our community are disabled, just like some people are disabled in a heterosexual, if you will, environment. And we bleed just like you do.
Why do you think there is that particular focus on the trans community? We've seen it in other states, in particular, where this hasn't been proposed. Legislation has been passed that limits rights or does not fully recognize who people are and who they identify as.
I try to be as neutral as possible, but the facts of the matter is that we've had people on a national level who have the face of the camera pushing hatred out there, pushing these lies and these misnotions, if you will. And then you have these extremists that have gone so far, in my opinion, right, that have caused so much hatred, and they just keep putting that fuel on that fire. And so if you have our elected officials acting away, and you have our elected officials saying it's okay to say this, and you're just demonstrating, then on a national level, that's what we're going to get now. So now we're starting to see the real impact that this stuff has happened over the course of, I would say, 8 years even, when you're looking back at some of this. And now we're in a situation where on a national level, the parties have changed a little bit. So now to try to roll back all these stuff that happens, but that takes time, and it's going to take a lot of time to heal, because a lot of our community feel unsafe. Even within our own city, Milwaukee right now, we feel unsafe. We don't feel we have we're scared to hold hands with our partners right now. We're scared to go to certain places like we used to go to, and we just don't feel safe there, And again, this goes all the way back up to our elected officials who, in my opinion, have been acting inappropriate to our community on all levels.
And we do know that the words that are said do have impact. Unfortunately, here within the past year of Milwaukee, we've had 3 trans people murdered and targeted because of their status. How do we as a community work to counter that? Not the LGBTQ plus community, but as a community as a whole. How do we work to counter some of those things that are out there?
It's a very good question. The thought behind it is really, again, going back to that education and understanding who we are as a people. Milwaukee has always been known as a very gay-friendly city, actually. One of the few cities around the nation that was very progressive in its time for LGBTQIA plus rights. And I think sometimes what happens, even with our allies and all of us together, we get comfortable, right? And then when you have this national movement of hatred being exposed out there, and this national movement to continue to say that we are not human and we don't have rights, it kind of ripple effects down. And then when you have a state assembly, like I just mentioned, trying to pass laws that are totally anti-gay against our community or LGBTQI plus community, it keeps fostering that narrative of always us going back to something we don't have to, but we choose to always take this step back. So now it's almost like, wait a minute, I feel like we're going back to the 1990s again with some of these things. And the other piece of it where we've learned throughout the years is we come together. And the reason why we come together is because all we have is each other. And when these three unfortunate murders happened to my transgender sisters, it really did impact the community. And I can be one to tell you, one of them came to the center and I knew them. So that really brought some tremendous hurt to me, to the point where I'm actually said we got more work to do, and we really got to make sure that we're protecting our transgender community. And one of the things that we've done here in Pivot and even the board of directors of the Milwaukee LGBT Community Center is making sure that we have programming in place that's going to support our transgender community, but more than that, that they have a place they can call home that is going to be safe for them. And they're not going to feel targeted. They're not going to feel that they're not a part of this world, because they are.
Kevin, thank you so much for the work that you do and that the Milwaukee LGBT Community Center does. We look forward to the next 25 years and the way you're going to continue to provide services and educate all of us about this very important part of our community.
So, and thank you for having me on. I appreciate it. We're here to stay, and we're loud and proud. And don't forget, Pride Month's next month, so we're excited for that.
Absolutely. For more information about the Milwaukee LGBT Community Center, visit its website at mkelgbt.org. Before we go tonight, we have an update about a topic we've brought to you over the past year: reckless driving. It's a major issue on Milwaukee roadways. It makes drivers nervous, causes accidents, and even takes lives. Just a year ago, Milwaukee Mayor Cavalier Johnson talked to us about what was then a brand new initiative the city hoped would slow this dangerous epidemic: confiscating the cars of reckless drivers.
We just worked with the police department, the Fire and Police Commission, and the Department of Public Works to institute a new towing policy so that if folks are driving recklessly in the streets, the police now have an additional tool that they're able to use to, what I say, take them out the game. If they don't want to obey the rules of the road and they want to endanger the greater public safety, well, then take their means of doing that away.
The city just released a report on the results of the first year of the program. It towed and confiscated 268 cars over the course of the year from individuals driving unregistered cars who were engaged in reckless driving, speeding, fleeing police, or street racing. Over half of those drivers were not the owners of the vehicles they were driving. We'll continue to bring you important information and updates on efforts to curb reckless driving here in Milwaukee. Thank you for joining us on Connect MKE Conversations on Race. To rewatch and share these important programs, visit our YouTube page at youtube.com/ConnectMKE. And as always, join us weekly for our discussions with local leaders and community members on Connect MKE each Saturday morning on My24 and Sunday mornings on CW18. I'm your host, Denise Calloway. Thank you for joining me tonight on Connect MKE Conversations on Race. Special thanks to our sponsors, U.S. Bank, the Greater Milwaukee Urban League, and the Milwaukee Fire and Police Commission.